students, how you doing? This is my presentation using slides, okay, as well as organized notes. Here we start Unit 1, the discipline of history and human history evolution. By the way, you can find me using this channel, History Tutors Hub, grade 9, 12, either on YouTube or the Telegram. Okay, this unit, you see, introduce the foundation of history. It will tell us the difference between prehistory and history, what human evolution is, Africa's central role as cradle of humanity, and the methods historians use to study the past. The unit also emphasizes historical methodology, analysis of source, and understanding change over time. Let's go in detail. The first one is meaning of prehistory and history. What's the very basic foundation term for the subject history? Okay, here it says history, the word comes from the Greek word historia, meaning inquiry or investigation to reach or to find, to get information. Okay, now it tells of human activities since written begin. What's the main difference between prehistory and history is this point. Okay, something that should be studied prior to or events done by practices or human activities that had occurred prior or before 5,000 years ago, which equals to 7,500 BC. Okay, we call it prehistory. Something that had happened before this time was studied by prehistory. Here it says prehistory refers to the period before written records, studied through archaeology and fossils. Archaeology, meaning that extraction of fossils from beneath the earth. These fossils are studied by prehistory. History examines what happened, why it happened, and how it happened using written evidence. This is the nature of the subject history, what it studies, okay? What happened, the kind of event that had occurred in the past, okay, after this period. Okay, we investigate, we try to understand what had happened, why, and how it had happened using written evidence. There should be evidence, actually. Historians distinguish facts from opinions for accurate interpretation. To have a realistic interpretation or meaning of something, historians distinguish these things. Opinions are ideas, views of humans. Facts are something that is tangible, clearly seen, okay, could be said as fact. So there is a difference. This is a practice, this is an idea. History helps explain the past, understand the present, and guide the future. Okay, we should know and explain what had happened in the past. History helps us to explain, to describe something on the events that had passed and on the events happened earlier, we can understand what is actually present or existing on Earth today. And it will also guide us to forecast the future, to predict the future. 1, 2, the discipline of history. Discipline meaning that here as a subject matter. Discipline refers to subject, the subject of history as a discipline. History helps us understand the past, interpret the present, and prepare for the future. We said here, it promotes citizenship, nationalism, and awareness of global issues. It could enable us to know our nation, to know our people, to know our territory. This by itself consolidates or raises our understanding about what a nation is. Our citizenship, our feeling belongingness, the feeling we have to our people, to our country, and awareness of plus beyond the border of our nation. It helps us to have awareness or understanding of global issues, be it political, economic, or social issues. Meaning that it widens our horizon of knowledge on global matters. It develops research skills. It gives us skills. Using history, we can have research skills, how to collect data, how to analyze those collected data. Through history, students practice critical thinking and evidence-based reasoning. One must not be, as a enlightened person, one must not be, especially students, should not base their views, their opinions on non-critical thinking, but they should critically thinking on something. Reasonably, they should forward ideas, opinions. History helps them, students, even any other person, to have a critical thinking on something and should have a reason-based or evidence-based opinions. 1-to-1 importance of history. History increases awareness, understanding of the past, knowing the present, and forecasting the future. It helps understand democracy, what this word does mean, what nationalism does mean, and global relationships. Studying history builds analytical and problem-solving skills. Something as we have above mentioned, this case. It means analytical, meaning that evidence-based, critical thinking, which means critical thinking, critical analysis. Here is not a thinking, actually. It is analysis, critical analysis, and we identify problems, and for those problems, history gives us skills how to solve those problems. It strengthens identity, who we are, our feeling. It promotes our feeling about our nation, who we are, investigating the past, who we are, what people we are, our citizenship, and critical reasoning, meaning that critical reasoning, evidence-based reasoning, that means evidence-based reasoning, fact-based reasoning. 1-2, historiography and historical interpretations. Historiography, the word implies to the study how history is written. It's the way how we write history. Okay, the study of how history is written, it says, historiography. It's a study, it's a science that helps us to how to write history. Herodotus is known as the father of history. Okay, now he was the first person from Greece, a Greek philosopher, a Greek historian who is still now considered as the father of history for his analysis. For instance, he gave us information about the Nile civilization of the Egyptians. Leopold von Ranke established history as an academic discipline, as a discipline here, okay, as a subject matter. He was the one who established history. In Ethiopia, history writing evolved from royal chronicles to modern research. Chronicles here, the writers of chronicles, we call them chroniclers, royal chronicles, okay? Actually, they are written materials written by chroniclers, but most of the chronicles are political and in favor of the kings, in favor of the royal family. It doesn't focus on the societal values. Okay, the society's involvement on any of the economic, social, or political achievements. Mainly, it tells us about the war victory gained by that particular king or emperor. So it needs what we call scrutiny, investigation, check whether the ideas or the written materials, the written things written there, found there in the chronicles, whether they are purely right or evidence-based or not. We have to check it now and then. And they should be actually used as primary source plus as secondary source in the absence of evidence. So, history writing, what it says in Ethiopia, history writing evolved from royal chronicles, ancient chronicles, to modern research. How history developed, evolved, meaning that gradually developed. Historical interpretation analyzes and explains events while evaluating bias. In any interpretation or analysis, events should be evaluated with no bias, with no prejudice. Meaning that historical analysis or analyst, the one who explains, should be free from prejudice, from bias. Bias meaning free of ethnic bias, free of religious bias. 1.3, source of history. Historical study depends on source, primary and secondary. These are the first one, especially the source. This primary source are source more reliable than the secondary source. Okay, here it says primary source include original materials like tools, regions, and documents. Tools can be like stone tools. Okay, people, ancient men, ancient humans try getting hunted animals. Ruins, these are relics or remnants of buildings, monuments, it could be. Documents, this could be like agreemental or treaty documents, diaries, or letters written from one king to another. Uh, these are primary source, first-hand information. First-hand information. This need not a kind of scrutiny. They are tools, ruins, and documents that had existed at the time of the event, when the event occurred, sometime in the past. They are primary. Eyewitnesses should be included here. Eyewitness, okay, people's explanation or uh, source materials given from people who had been who were at that time, who were living at that time. Primary sources are such coins, ornaments we can add. Secondary sources are interpretations, like your history textbooks. It requires scrutiny and articles. Okay, some portion of written material, okay, presented in articles, as articles. Oral traditions can serve as both primary and secondary. This means that oral traditions are information, historical information, transferred from generation to generation, the fathers to children, the children to grandchildren. It, which means, in the absence of primary source, we can use oral traditions as primary source. In the absence of primary source, if we don't have any other written materials or documents that tell us about a specific people or society, if we lack primary source, we should use oral traditions as primary source. Otherwise, in the presence of primary source, oral traditions should be taken as secondary source. So both ways we can use oral traditions. All sources must be critically examined for authenticity and accuracy. Critically examined, okay, reason-based, bias-free. Should be free and critically examine all sorts of history to be authentic and to be accurate. Dating in history, this is very crucial, okay, very important. Dating shows when events occurred and helps track change over time. Dating is a reflection or something that helps people or historians to study on something, on events that had occurred before. This thing is very crucial for them. Helps track changes over time. Everything or every occurrence of events should have a kind of turning point, and we should set events in their chronological occurrence. Okay, something comes from ancient times, then something occurred here as a turning point. We know it through dating, and then other events follows, and then other events follows. We set events in terms of their occurrence. Okay, to set that occurrence of events, we should have a dating system. Time units include, okay, This is universally accepted way of specifying decade equal to decade to mean 10 years, century 100 years, millennium 1,000 years. Timelines show events in chronological order. Okay, you say things in timeline. Okay, something like in BC, something happened in BC, and something happened in AD, BC and AD. Yeah, we differentiate things happened like events happened in BC. We sit down here, and following the days of Jesus Christ, events occurred in AD. So this is a timeline. Events, we set our events and we mark the time or the dating of the occurrence of these events. That's timeline. History is divided into ancient, medieval, and modern periods. Specifically, we have like Ethiopian history, African, and the globe, world history, or European history. So we can divide, we can set Ethiopian history in the study of Ethiopian history. We can classify it, categorize events in terms of their ancient occurrence, their medieval occurrence, and modern. So Ethiopia history could be divided into ancient Ethiopian history, medieval Ethiopian history, modern Ethiopian history. In this regard, ancient Ethiopian history from the time of Damat to 1270, okay, Damat like 1000 BC to 1270, from 1270 to the rise of Emperor Theodros in 1855, then from 1855 on. That is modern history of Ethiopia. For Africa, instead of, it's not appropriate to use ancient, medieval, or modern African history, rather pre-colonial African history, colonial history of Africa, and post-independence of African history. For the world or European history, we have ancient world history. For instance, the start of the Sumerian civilization, like 4000 BC to 500, especially European ancient history, up to 500 AD. From 500 AD to the start of capitalism, we call it medieval history, 1500. Modern history of Europe from 1500 on, call it modern European history. Examples, okay, we set things like the Battle of Adwa. We have this year, 1896, GERD project, Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam project, 2011. Without these years, very complicated, without having the year, okay? When was, if this was not mentioned, okay, the Battle of Adwa, when? It's very difficult to identify when that battle occurred, including GERD. So we should have the years, specific years. Evolution of human beings, 1.3. Humans belong to the hominid family, not to animal family. Hominid family, okay, let's Let's try to understand it. Fossils like chronologically we set the human evolution, okay, after investigating or critical study on the extracted fossils, okay, we can say something about the human appearance on Earth and the gradual evolution from the early ape, uh, Malay ape, to the modern man, which is Homo sapiens sapiens. So, going back, we have here Ardipithecus ramidus. Here, this fossil was found in Ethiopia. Australopithecus afarensis, this one also found in Ethiopia, okay, which is Lucy. Lucy, found in 1974, among the oldest things. What makes Lucy different from, unique from other fossils, that its skeleton is completely full, absolutely full, or complete. All fossil parts of its body found completely, with no absence of parts of skeleton. Homo erectus, okay, this shows us bipedalism. Homo erectus, okay. Erectus goes with bipedalism. Who used this creature used fire and stone tools to hunt animals, migrating. This was the one who had migrated from Africa to Asia. Ethiopia and East Africa are key to understanding human origins. You see, this is this part of Africa, eastern part of Africa, including Ethiopia, is the East African Rift Valley. This is very key or important in understanding the human origins, how humans were originated or created. Fossils found in the valley of East Africa are very helpful for archaeologists to study, investigate, and find out truths or fact. 131. Here we have three species, major human species. Homo habilis. Homo does mean what? Human. Human. Homo habilis, handy, which is handy. Homo erectus, upright human, walking man. And Homo sapiens, wise. He could bring complex ideas, complex tools, and even developed language. Okay, even though it was not like our organized language, but gesture language, body language, sign language, that means. Here, habilis, early tool user, and the fossils found in Omo Valley, and erectus, as we mentioned above, used fire, and he was the one who left Africa. And the fourth one, modern humans, here it is double, sapiens sapiens, Homo sapiens sapiens, appeared on Earth, particularly in Africa 40,000 years ago, in the Omo, Awash Valley, Melka Kontori, that means Omo, South Ethiopia, Dreda in the east of Ethiopia. Theories of human evolution. We have two distinct theories on how humans were created. Uh, Creationist view, it's it's a belief in, okay, that humans created by God, nothing by something else, but by God, by a higher being called God. Evolution theory proposed by Charles Darwin explains human evolution through natural process, gradual process, evolutionary process, not a revolutionary process, not once at a time, created as here. It was humans created, somebody is created once at a time by God. Here, it's a gradual process, it says, evolution theory, a gradual process from lower being to higher being, to human. Evolution is supported by fossils and biology. Creation, okay, this creationist theory supported by creationism, by phase. This creationism, sorry, okay, is forwarded or believed in phase by phase. Human's creation is by phase. If you have a phase in that, you believe in the theory, rejecting evolutionary theory. If you don't have opposite to that, okay, based on facts, that is evolution theory. Evolution theory is scientific, actually. Both attempt to explain the origin of humanity from different perspectives, yeah, different, totally different perspective they have. Africa and human evolution. By the way, here, these two theories are different, opposing theories, but the students, which to take, which to accept, should be preserved for the student himself. It's according to your belief, your faith, or your mentality to decide or to follow or to accept any of the two theories. There should not be imposition from teachers. But what it says is, this is a creationist theory, this is the scientific evolutionary theory. What we as historians could explain to our students is showing to our students the difference between these two. To accept or to reject of any of these two should be left for the students. 1.5. Africa and human evolution. Africa is known as the cradle of, as I mentioned here, there above East African Rift Valley, as origin of the cradle of humankind. Discoveries include, okay, chadness. These are the symbols, okay, the image here presented. Okay, Chadensis in Chad 6 to 7 million years ago. Ramidus, Ethiopia, 4 million years ago. Okay. Lucy, 3.18 million years ago. What evolutionary theory here telling us is the gradual development from ancient animals, man-like apes, okay, man-like apes, to the modern man. Okay, the years itself showing us deducting, okay, from 6 to 7 to 4 to 3 evolutionary development there occurred. Sites like Olduvai Gorge, Taung, and Lake Turkana, these are in the East African Rift Valley, like for instance, Taung, South Africa, Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, Taung, South Africa, Lake Turkana, Kenya. These are archaeological sites, notable, known archaeological sites. Africa provides fossils of, yeah, enough. The fossils of this one, Homo habilis and Africanus, okay, fossils were found in Africa. Stone Age. Here, in short, we can classify or categorize the period humans practiced in the past during the Stone Age, prior to the Iron Age. We can classify that time into three. One is Paleolithic, Old Stone Age. The other is Mesolithic, Middle Stone Age, Transitional, Neolithic, New Stone Age. The longest of all these three, the longest was Paleolithic. Crude tools with no human made, no human hands being here, not found here, just the natural tools, it means, crude tools, the natural tools like obsidian tools. Okay, that helped ancient humans to hunt animals. Okay, discovery of fire, it was here in the Paleolithic period. People living in caves. People living in caves, okay. Oral speech, meaning that sign speech or gesture language. Here, Mesolithic is a transitional stage where we have improved tools from crude tools, okay, humans involved here in shaping tools, improved tools, hunting was there, continuity of hunting, okay, there was hunting here as well, fishing, and the period 9,000 to 8,000 BC. We can just sometime like 40,000, we can say it, to 9,000 BC. Sometimes you find this way of in the explanation like 11,000 years ago. Don't be confused. If you when you add 2,000 on it, on 2,000 plus 9,000 is 11,000 years ago. That is 9,000 BC. Okay, between this period we have Paleolithic. Between this period only for 1,000 years, Mesolithic, and from 8,000 to 4,000 BC. Here we have Neolithic. The range it differs from place to place, okay? The Egyptian civilization differs from Sumerian and differs from Chinese or Indian civilization. The point is Neolithic revolution, meaning that sedentary life, humans begin to settle somewhere on the banks of the rivers. Farming started there, domestication of plants started there, okay, on the river banks, like the Sumerian civilization was founded, okay, a center of where it became centered was Euphrates, the Euphrates River, the Tigris River. Between these two, on the banks of these two rivers, humans settled and began a sedentary life, meaning that settled life. Therefore, farming started there, and taming animals began. And instead of hunting, there were widespread of use of practice of hunting actually, but few people in civilized areas began to tame, to domesticate animals. Permanent settlements, as I said, pottery began. Okay, pottery, crafting pots from clay soil, weaving, okay, to bring about, to produce clothes, okay. These three of all the many practice, we have these three basic or key elements that had occurred during the Neolithic period. Neolithic revolution, okay, at first it was subsistence, hand to mouth, but gradually surplus food. Okay, excess food was produced during the Neolithic revolution, and it began to be considered as early civilization. You know, when surplus, the point is, when surplus food increased, okay, there began a kind of trading, buying and selling using barter system, and gradually, here, no private ownership of property this period prior to Neolithic age. Here, everything was common. People in ancient times, like during the Paleolithic period, humans collectively in group hunting animals. They used to hunt animals. They used to hunt animals in group, collectively. And they used to eat that hunted animal collectively, with no sense of private ownership of something. No private ownership of something, no class, no rich, no poor here in the Paleolithic period, no state, no government, no police force. Ancient people this time freely moved from place to place, from one cave to another. No law, no rule at all. But here, surplus food leading to ownership of the produce, ownership of the producing tools, and a sense of ownership began here. Privately owned sentiment started here. Then one section want to take the property of the other, leading to war. And the war captives became slaves. And the winners of that war became slave owners. This way, states, governments began to appear. Okay, from classless society here, from classless society to class-having society. State formation, government formation, rules, police force, rich and poor occurred this time during the Neolithic period. That's all about Unit 1. Next time I'll join you with Unit 2, both in Amharic and English. I just remind you to subscribe, share this video for all the students you know or nearby. Thanks for your patience.